So there we go, the mics are live and looks like I got us both on screen. So welcome aboard, everybody. This is Fly in Formation. It's an interview series that's kind of a spin-off from my mix show. My mix show is called After the Smoke is Clear, or ATSIC. If people are looking for hour-long mixes of new independent hip-hop that's pretty much all Canadian from coast to coast, that's the place you can find it, mixcloud.com/Doobyis. And today, you know, I'm talking with Z the Free. She reps for, I believe, the Calgary scene, right?
Calgary, but also out in Treaty 6 territory. I've kind of branched to Saskatoon and Saskatchewan, so it's kind of neat to kind of be between both provinces and see the difference and the joys and highs and lows of both.
For real, yeah. So, like when I do the write-up for this and say, you know, I talked to blank-based artists, Z the Free, like, where should I say, Calgary or Saskatoon? Or
I would just say, like, I grew up in Treaty 7 and now I'm from like mountains to prairies. I feel like that's what I say.
For real. Okay. Yeah. Nice. I like that. So yeah, you've done a lot of music over the past couple of years. Moonbeams was the newest one, I think, like October last year, right?
Yeah, I love that collab project. It's a really neat thing where I'm getting to rap on beats that an amazing artist, he's also a rapper, Parab Poet, makes the beats live on the MPC. So when we do it live, it's a little different because lots of hip hop is with the DJ holding it down, always as a pillar. But it's neat when the beats are also live from the MPC and you're rapping and you're kind of catching each other's flow rather than just like a recorded beat.
I wanted to ask about that. Like, is it tricky to... I mean, you know, Parab Poet's a talented guy. I have seen him and his group. I don't know if they're even still a group anymore, but I remember when he was part of Hip Hop Hippies, I saw him perform in Edmonton at like Hip Hop in the Park Festival. They came out and performed there, and I was performing too, so I got to take in one of their shows. But, you know, with a guy up there playing the sampling live, is it ever kind of like, does it feel like playing with a live band a little bit more and just a little bit more kind of swing to the beat than you might normally get?
It's not quite like a live band because I also have this freestyle project, this group called H2 Flow, because we're like water and it's all freestyle. So the instrumentation's freestyle, the bars are freestyle. That's kind of like our thing.
Right.
But it's very much impacted by the energy. So I'll notice that sometimes when we first start playing, the beats are a little quicker, you know what I mean? And so I just have to also be ready to like, okay, we might be, the BPM's a little faster than the recorded one. And also sometimes it, I think, allows for a little more like dialogue and exchange with what's going on, because you can kind of change the set a bit. Sometimes you can extend the beats at the end. Parab will add like a sick little, you know, kind of his own freestyle vibe, and then I can spit some freestyle bars. So
or do some
I really love being able to,
or whatever else, right? Like gives you a live,
I love being able to play in that realm of creation in the moment. I think that's where the real magic of, to me, like the essence of hip hop and art and performing comes through.
For real. So, like, are you saying the essence of improvisation you feel like is kind of a core tenet of what you do? I take it with, you know, H2 Flow, you know, obviously being a lot of improvisation, you must be pretty into that element of hip hop, eh?
Yeah, and I guess I call it freestyle, the art of freestyle, and really they're the same, right? It's just that I think freestyle is associated with having flow, right? And being able to kind of catch the wave and do it in a way that's really pleasing to the ear and the listener. And improv is just what we do all the time. So whenever somebody says to me, I can't freestyle, I'm like, well, do you answer questions in a job interview off the cuff? When you're on a date with somebody and you're trying to make conversation, do you come up with things? Like, you're improving all the time, and freestyle is actually the same. If you just get out of your own way, everybody can freestyle.
For real. Yeah, I like that. So like with the whole improvisation like that on the fly with an entire group, the instruments and everything, they're making up and jamming whatever they want to play on the spot, or do you guys have like planned kind of beats or anything?
No, it's all off the top. And we do kind of get together and jam, but part of what we're going for with H2 Flow is we really want to keep it as true to the art of freestyle as possible so that when people are coming to the shows, they know they're going to get a really unique experience. And something that we've done, which I really love, is we'll actually ask the audience to help create the song with us. So we'll be like, what kind of genre do you want to hear? And they know that like myself and Big Tones, another very talented rapper who we're kind of the front people of the band,
Yep.
are hip hop, but sometimes they'll throw like a pop song and we'll be like, all right. And like, what do you want it to be about? And they might be like, chilling on a tropical beach. And we're like, okay, here we go. And the band starts. Really talented musicians behind us who can kind of catch any groove. And we just say we're in these genres of everywhere from like funk to hip hop to soul to rock to whatever flows through. And it's really magic and it never happens again. So it's kind of a neat thing to do at shows because you're really just surrendering,
How many people
to
in
the
the
creative
band?
muse. Yeah. And then the
How many
muse
people do you
carries it
have in the
away.
band? Like, is it tough to it must have been tough to find musicians who, kind of were down to improv like that. Are they from the jazz scene or something? Like, how did you find musicians who are down with that?
Yeah, well, Brody Moninger is a very talented musician from the prairies out here in Treaty 6. Travis Williamson plays in a band called Green Wing. They're kind of like blowing up right now. And Nathan Bear is the drummer. He's a really talented drummer, plays in quite a few bands as well.
Nice.
And they all just get it. They're just very high level musicians. They speak a different language. So as a rapper, I've learned a lot being in with live musicians when they're talking about what things sound good together, why we can't do that way, what's happening with the drums in order for the guitar to play off. And I think all artists should do that. There's something that's really important about learning live musicianship
Yeah.
and like live instrumentation that's very different than just rapping on a beat.
Correct.
The same way that I think all artists should freestyle because it just gives you this amazing toolkit that when you're on stage, if something goes wrong or you miss a lyric, you just freestyle, and the audience just still has a good time.
It's definitely such a good building block. Like, I grew up, with around a bunch of guys who played in bands and stuff. So like I've done a lot of jamming with musicians like that, and there's nothing quite like it to actually like be able to just jam through music and like jump in when you want to and cut out when it feels right and like let them carry off the jam. Like, yeah, music live like that is really a beautiful thing. I'd like to
And
take in
live
one of
hip
those
hop
shows.
live hip hop seems to always happen. Like if you look at artists when they get to a certain level, do you know what I mean? Like Chance the Rapper, when he's playing live at festivals, he's got a band with him. Do you know what I mean? Run the Jewels, when they're doing festivals, it's a live drummer on stage, like there's something that comes, I think, from that fluidity of people all being a part of the creative expression that hypes it up.
For real, yeah. So, can we go back to the Moonbeams album with Parab Poet? Where did you guys record that? Were you kind of back and forth from?
Oh man, no, that we recorded in Saskatoon, kind of in like the loft of Parab's house, and our mix and master engineer, Too Late, who works out of Vancouver, shout out Too Late, amazing to work with, was always like, you guys, why don't you just go to like a studio space? But we made it work, and it sounds great, and I'm happy with it. But again, I always stress that I work a lot with youth, that where you record does matter to an extent, especially like based on the gear you have. Certain mics, or if you have a Chaotica ball, they can help a lot. But
yeah,
it all matters.
That's
Sound
like one of those eyeballs
nowadays.
that goes around, the Chaotica eyeball thing, the purple orb around the mic. Yeah, okay, I've seen those. Yeah. Well, and even just like, having like, I've got a bunch of sound insulation around it. This isn't the greatest that you can do, but I've got it all around the room, and it helped a lot with the echo in this place or whatever. But like the home recording setup gives so much freedom that you don't necessarily get when you're in studio, unless you have a great big grant to pay for that studio time or are independently wealthy, I suppose, maybe. But I know a lot of artists like feel more pressure, I guess, being in like a professional studio setting. Have you worked in like a pro studio like that before?
Yeah, lots. I'm a voice actress. That's one of my jobs, and I started doing that when I was 11. So that was at a very high level studio called Blue Water in Calgary when I started. And so I grew up in the studio very much. There's always like a director, a sound engineer, then maybe some of the producers of the show. And so, yeah, I feel like I got really comfortable in the studio environment really young. I also think it helped me develop a lot of my lung and breath control, which I use now a lot with rap because
Right.
you're yelling a lot when you're voicing anime. So yeah, I've worked lots in professional studios, and I hear what you're saying, and I think it's true. There's good and bad to both. It's sweet to be able to like have inspiration hit at 2 a.m. and record in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's also really great to have an amazing engineer be like, okay, let's try this, let's orchestrate this. We have 2 hours, let's get it done in a good way, come prepared.
For real. Sometimes the
Yeah.
pressure can be a good thing too, to, get
Mhm.
people on their A game a little bit more than, if you're
Mhm.
just hanging out at somebody's house or whatever sometimes. But
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so have you been working on new stuff? Like, I know I heard that single Sriracha Peas with you and Big Tones
That was
and
kind of
Catfish
like
the
a
Wizard.
fun.
Yeah, yeah, that was
Those
dope.
Yeah, it was super fun. And like we have this ridiculous video that we should drop, but it's like kind of like a goofy fun thing. And it was more because I was like, I feel Moonbeams is this beautiful project where I was very just more in depth about some of my realities of being a human, a lot of things around earth and impermanence, and just kind of these deeper values come through in the lyrics. And so I just wanted to start the year with like something really light and getting back in this idea of like, let's have fun with this. Like, what are we here to do?
Yeah.
And for me, it's always play. And the next single that I'm going to put out, I'm really excited for because it's, I think, like a level up. It's where I want to be for 2024. And it came out of when I won the competition that was in the National Music Center for hip hop's 50th birthday. So it took place last August. And essentially, we had to submit a verse about what hip hop means to us. And we had to kind of tie it to the land a little bit of where we grew up or where we were situated in Canada.
Right.
And I did it really off the cuff. It was like half an hour to midnight, has to be in a midnight. Okay, let's write this verse. Shout
Not
out
quite
Catfish the
not
Wizard.
quite a freestyle, but pretty close. Just yeah.
Yeah. It was like just writing and trusting that it would be there. And
Yeah.
then I made it into the final competition. I was super blessed to be there. Amazing rappers were also there. And they had judges, and it was kind of like an audience thing too. And then we performed them at the National Music Center. And it all happened real quick. It was like within like 4 days. And then I won it. And so I got to record a track at the National Music Center. Eddie Pesos, who's a
Oh shoot, sorry,
great producer.
cut out for a second there. Yeah, he's Calgary based, right? Eddie
Yeah,
Pesos.
Eddie
Yeah,
Pesos did the beat. He's produced for Hawaii Mighty. I really love Hawaii Mighty, so that was cool. And it's just about hip hop and 50 years of it. What does that mean? My view of it as a woman in hip hop, my view of it growing up in Western Canada around hip hop. So I'm really excited for that. But I think it'll be like a later spring, and yeah, then we can bump it all summer kind of release.
for real. Is
Yeah.
there? It's just one track, just a single, or is it?
Yeah, I just want to drop it as like okay, we played around, here's the single. I find that fall is a beautiful time to put out projects. I think it aligns for me stretching, and then in the fall it's like, okay, we're in harvest mode. Here's what we got.
Sorry, I caught that. Your connection maybe, or my connection, somebody's connection paused for a second there. But the fall being a good time to put out albums.
Yeah, I think I like how it aligns with the time of harvest. I think
Okay.
that it's like aligns for me that spring is kind of like fun and we're playing through summer. And
Yeah.
then in the fall, it's like, okay, we worked. This is what we have to offer.
For real, yeah, time to kind of reap what you've sown. And I think also like fall and winter albums work nice because people are in at home, and they.
Yeah.
I think it might increase the likelihood that somebody actually spends an hour listening to an album or whatever, front to back, kind of like that.
I
But
think so too. Yeah. Summer is great for singles, but I always find it curious if people like drop a single or a project in the middle of summer, unless you're, Beyonce and you can do whatever you want apparently forever.
well,
You
it
know?
depends like what the lane of music is too, right? Like some people who are making like really kind of bouncy like festival music or whatever. I mean, I think makes a lot of sense to go do spring or summer drops. But yeah, it just depends kind of what vibe the album is going to be for sure.
Mm.
Have you got a chance to do like many festival performances? A lot of your music kind of
Yeah.
blends in some EDM elements and like is stuff that
Mhm.
would do well at a festival, I feel like.
Yeah, I love festivals. I think that it's been interesting for me because I am fairly recently sober. Like I just passed 2 years kind of at like the end of winter.
Right?
And I
Congrats.
used to be a heavy festivaler, partier. And so it's interesting to go to a festival sober as a performer and really like feeding off the energy and the excitement in a different way.
Real.
Yeah, I've played lots of things like that are sometimes like bushy festivals like Emotion and Ness Creek. Those are definitely kind of like all kinds of realms.
Yeah.
There's a great festival out here called Lakeside that I'm playing in August this year. There's a little farm one called Haywire that Moonbeams is playing in July. So yeah, it's kind of nice to have like one or two festivals every month. But I learned last summer I was just like crazy and it was amazing, but I didn't get any time to like swim in the river or just write music or be present in that really short season that we have where we live.
For sure.
And so this year I was like, I'm just going to do, you know what I mean? One or two a month is enough. It doesn't need
Yeah.
to be every weekend like playing shows.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe leave some
Yeah.
time to just go to a festival and enjoy the festivities or whatever. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because performing, even though it ignites me and a lot of people it does that, it's also a bit of a drain, you know? And
Yeah.
I really felt that kind of last summer. It was like, oh yeah, I want to keep this in a place where it's like joyful and doesn't start to feel like work. That's what it should always be for me to keep doing it.
For real. And festivals like have so much joy and love. Like, it's like I always feel like I go to North Country Fair some years and like
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of hippies just having a good time. Like everybody's out there just
Yes.
to spread love or whatever. And
Hmm.
I feel like those vibes are something that maybe like the hip hop scene needs a little bit more of. So I don't know. I've always
Very
leaned
much.
towards people who make that type of music or whatever, and like loved
Hmm.
the hip hop hippies name, just being like, yeah, that seems fitting. There should be hip hop hippies. I think that those people need to be out there. um,
Totally. And there is, and we need more love everywhere, you know what I mean? But it is very interesting the culture, which I think came, obviously from like a lot of the different conflicts that were going on in spaces where hip hop was born, right? It
for
was it
real.
was born out of these spaces of conflict and oppression and police brutality, war on drugs. And then the battle rap scene was a really great way to prove who you were. But it's interesting now when we don't necessarily need that same way to prove yourself, but it seems to remain very strong in some spaces.
Yeah,
Whereas it's like everybody has access to put out their music, everybody's their own unique being.
it's
Yeah,
it's a
but
good day to ask you what you think about like diss raps and battle raps and
right?
stuff, right?
I was
Because
thinking that just
Kendrick
before
finally
this started. I
dropped.
was like,
Yeah.
okay, here we go, Kendrick. I haven't actually listened to it yet.
I
So
haven't been asking anybody like through this whole, big three battle or whatever. I haven't been asking anybody like directly, like, whose team are you on? Or like,
yeah.
what side do you think should win or whatever. But I've been, kind of asking some questions. So like, do you do battles? Have you, you're big on the freestyle scene. Do you ever find yourself in battles?
My favorite battle that I ever did was with a homie who I love so much named Rubik's from YYC and Treaty 7.
Yep.
And we were at like a wild house party. You know what I mean? It was one of those like mansion house parties out kind of on the edge of the city. You're like, how does this exist?
Right.
And I kind of entered it like for fun, right? And it was like very much like in this packed out space with just people screaming. And somehow I made it to the final round with Rubik's. And I was just really having fun with it. And then in the very last round, instead of dissing him, like I dissed him, you know what I mean, enough. And then we had, I think, 3 rounds. So the third round, I actually just said like everything that I loved about him and was like,
That
because
was
I
the
have such
compliment
respect for him. And I
style.
was like, I don't really, care. And then it won, you know what I mean?
Nice.
Which I think is so interesting. And like you'll hear that where people will twist things in battles or every once in a while. And I know it's not necessarily like what it's supposed to be, but for me, it was really powerful. And the crowd like totally loved it. And I
Yeah.
think that's interesting that we pretend that hate or dissing someone will, level us up. And there's something maybe to marketing with this whole top three going on. But in the real moment of it, humans love seeing people be good to each other. We actually really love that. We're a cooperative species. You know what I mean? We would die without cooperation. So I like to remind people of that in battles. Yeah, I'm not afraid to battle. I think it's not really my energy of who I am, but like I have no fear. You know what I mean? Like I'll battle, it'll be fun. I think freestyle is easy. I don't really get the researching and like finding out the terminal illness and trauma you went through with your grandma and bringing that up. I would never do that. I would just freestyle in the moment and like say some fun shit to try and win the crowd over.
So in that battle against Rubik's, I know Rubik's, by the way, I interviewed him for Fly Information, but he's a good dude and people should check out his music too. But were you guys, did you have a beat or was it a cappella kind of KOTD style? Like,
yeah, no, it had a beat. I can't remember who the DJ was, but they were dropping different beats for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's huge, right? Like the beat makes or breaks it. It's the same with break battles, right? Like you'll see like break dancers and sometimes a team gets a better, you know, break beat or the DJ really hits them with something nice and then it can influence it.
Yeah, for real. And, you know, if they're feeling it, whatever the DJ drops, it depends, whether it's that person's style of beat or not. It's not necessarily better beats or whatever, but just what people are feeling more. This was something I wanted to ask you, just being like a real freestyle-based MC. Is there something that you would recommend MCs avoid doing in a freestyle cypher? Like, what's the worst thing an MC could do in a freestyle cypher?
The worst thing an MC can do in a freestyle cypher is let the audience know if you mess up, because there's such a live hunger in an actual freestyle, right? Like not a written, that the audience feels it, you feel it. And if someone trips up and you just cover it with a what coming back in, you know what I mean? The audience is just riding the waves that you are directing them on. Yeah. And so whenever somebody goes like, oh shit, I'm like, you just gave it up. You didn't even have to give it up.
Yeah, so MCs forget keep going. MCs forget that like not everybody is as lyrically minded as they are, or as like most MCs tend to be. So it's like you kick yourself for missing that double rhyme or whatever, but like nobody in the crowd even noticed, you know?
Totally. And strong. It's the most important thing.
Yeah, for real. Even in writtens, right? Like I always tell people, like I've worked with, you know, youth and different populations and kind of coached in lyric writing too. And I always told people like first bar and last bar of your verse, those are the ones that people are going to remember, and you need the first one to grab people's attention and the last one is the one that they're going to walk away remembering. So I agree completely on those. Is a cypher a place to practice or a place to show out? I feel like, you know, probably different ciphers, there's different answers for that, but
yeah, great question. I think it depends where the cipher is. I think that a cipher is a place to practice and a place to show out. I think it's always both, because to me, the cipher kind of, what I've come to know it as and respect it as, and when I see it in other places where it was grown, you know what I mean? It's a place where anybody can step to. It just depends how you might feel when you step out of the space. But everybody is welcome in that space to come and spit what they want to spit. And if you want to come and practice and learn, that's really dope. Cypher Club YYC is definitely, I think, a place where people do both. Like there are amazing rappers who come there. Some of the best rappers, I think, from Calgary have been in that cypher. And then people who are just learning can also be in that space. And I think that's really healthy. That's healthy for everything in the world. If you have pros and experts in the same space with kind of just people that want it and are learning, that's a very healthy thing for both. So I think the cipher is a space for people just contributing. And so long as you're there to contribute, you're welcome there.
Most of the time there's so much mutual respect in ciphers. I don't think I've ever actually seen a cipher where it like disintegrates into people actually like disliking each other or not. Like you said, most people are there to support and you know, vibe, and if somebody trips up, it's not that big of a deal most of the time. But can you tell me a little bit about the Paved Arts group out in Saskatoon there? I saw that's where you guys recorded Sriracha Peas, right?
Yes. Well, actually, Sriracha Peas we recorded in Calgary at the Wizard Palace, which is like our homie's studio, but it's really dope. And
Okay.
the work, yeah, that I do at Paved Arts is youth artist mentorship work. So I'm really lucky that I'm on an artist residency right now. Grants are a great thing if people can find the way to unlock them.
For real.
And so I'm able to work with youth every week, and it's free recording sessions and kind of mentorship and also opportunities for them to perform, and they're kind of like all collaborative songs and pieces, and then we're going to release the project and they'll be able to find stuff that they've made and created on Spotify and Apple Music. And
Yeah.
it's really amazing to work with young people, and it's also such a huge learning process. Like I can get very, very inspired in that space. I also learn about navigating people's egos, or I reflect on how I was when I was young and
Yeah.
the opportunities I was given and how I handled those, or what I understood about those at the time. And it's really fascinating. Humans are wild.
Yeah, people get so much empowerment from being able to kind of come out and express themselves through their songs or whatever, and they walk away so happy with those songs that they've made. Like I've run programs similar to that or whatever in the past, and it's been like you say, like so much inspiration from people who otherwise I might not have been hanging around, like just youth, especially, like who have different opinions on hip hop and like different styles of hip hop that, like, my old ass was sleeping on until they told me to figure it out, kind of, and vice versa. I think, like you said, it's good to have both levels in shared spaces like that, because everybody builds off of each other like that.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you about, so I thought that this was playing off of the Paved Arts thing, but did you meet Big Tones through Paved Arts, or because I saw on your IG story today, you have more music coming with Big Tones. It looked like you had him mentioned in the story or whatever, and it looked like more music being cooked up.
So we cook lots. Actually, we met in Vancouver, but actually through a hip hop show in Regina. And so we had kind of like mutual homies in Vancouver, and then we kind of started connecting. And Big Tones is from Pasqua and Gordon's, which are Treaty 4 territory in Regina. And so was like, yo, I'm doing this show in Regina. Do you want to come down? And that's where we met, was at that show. And it was their whole crew. So OTO is like Big Tones and his brother OTO Curly. Then their producers, Too Late and Pascal Beats. And so it was such a refreshing experience, because often when you show up to a show with like rappers you haven't met before, and when you're a woman in hip hop, sometimes they'll give you like a bad opening slot. Or I liken it to sometimes when you want a volleyball team, but you need a girl on the team to play intramurals. And so they put you on the team, which is very different than someone being like, we want you on this team because you're really good at volleyball. What position do you want to play? And do you want to be starting or weren't, you know what I mean? And it was very much like that.
Yeah.
And it was just a great show. And then I flew to Vancouver. They were having a big show there. And Icon Hip Hop throws some really great ciphers in Vancouver. So we went to lots of those, and it was so, so great. And it's interesting because those ciphers, I feel like people often will almost look to kind of create a bit of a battle or beef vibe. So I learned lots in that cipher space. Yeah. And then it just kind of, we're able to do lots of artist mentorship work together and lots of collabs. And I really love the old school, like hip hop. Like I love 50 Cent. You know what I mean? And I feel like Big Tones really raps that way. So it's nice. A lot of people want to rap fast, and Big Tones just like totally
Slow
chills
flows.
it out.
Yeah. I dig it though. He's got some gems though. That's the thing with slow flows. You got to actually have something to say a little bit more.
Very much.
People are going to hear the words. Yeah. How do you normally find other artists to work with? Like, it sounds like you're, back and forth all across Western Canada pretty regularly, from the sounds of what you're telling me. What do you normally look for other artists to work with?
I feel like it's very much person as who they are, and then I'll want to make art with them. And I think that it's something that's based in authenticity. I just think if somebody is authentic, then that's really appealing to me. And they're going to make music that comes across authentic. It's like if you're making a short film, you want good actors who are authentic in what they're doing. Otherwise, the whole film is going to fall apart. And so I think authenticity is like the number one for me in artistry. I really like collaborating with youth because it usually feels a little less serious. And I think that it can be really fun to explore those things and see what comes out. And I think that it's also time and place, like to be super real. Like if you're in a city and you're there for a weekend and you're like, hey, I want to make some music and you can do a dope collab with somebody. I've had magic stuff come from those kind of things. So I think it's like an openness, yeah, to what emerges.
But so typically are the artists you are working with people who you've met in person, kind of shaken hands with and actually built some sort of, you know, relationship with, you know, in the flesh, or do you find artists online, I guess, to work with sometimes as well?
I've never like pursued finding an artist online, but I've had, you know, beats sent to me through that way. Is probably the most often collab is like, oh, if a beat is cool, then it'll form. Or sometimes you'll start the connection. And then when you end up being in the same city, you're like, okay, now we can do something. Or you end up like doing a show together in that type of form. But it's really interesting, like a lot of the things like rap stars or like, you know what I mean? These apps and things that are kind of like people are using them as like a hub to connect. I think I'm very blessed and very lucky that I have a lot of homies who produce that are really talented and just a lot of cypher homies that rap and sing that I can collab with. And yeah, I really love performing.
Community, that'll be a result of that, right? If you're out enough performing and meeting new people, you'll build that posse pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. And it's about the DJ too. Like for me, I love to perform with a live DJ. I don't like playing my beats myself. I like to be able to be so present in my performing and interacting with the crowd. And I know that the DJ is just holding it down. I love performing with DJ Charlie Hustle out here. He's like a Red Bull DJ champion. Nice. I love performing with Catfish the Wizard in YYC because he's so hype and talented. I think it's really important that rappers think about their performance, right? And what you're doing live that's very different than when someone's listening to you. I think there's the recording artistry, there's the live performance, and then there's like what people are listening to in like a space of, you know, focusing on that music. And they're kind of all different.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, actually. So like a lot of artists feel like, I think there's two camps, right? There's some artists who want their stage show to be as near to exactly what they sound like on records, and you know they want to nail the bars flawlessly and have everything performed in the same sequence as they do on albums, and then there's people who come at it from the opposite side where it's like, no, you know, let's play with this and improvise a little bit here and stretch out this element, or you know, do various different breakdowns. You're more about kind of a new experience when you're on stage compared to the recorded music, eh?
It's both. Like, I think it depends on what the show is. I think things like festivals or those types of spaces you can play with a little more. I love to be able to do that. I very much trust my DJs. I'm like, go ahead and scratch. Or if you're noticing something and you want to prolong the hook, I'll catch it and repeat it. Those types of things. I'm very excited to be opening for Classified because I listened to Classified a lot when I was like very young and just learning about hip hop and Canadian hip hop. And so I feel like for that set, I really need to bring it, right? That set, I'll be like very polished. I know what I want to do. And it also depends on the other openers. Like Northside Baby is also opening for him, and Northside Baby is blowing up right now. And he's like a young Indigenous rapper who's very talented. There's huge First Nations community that are going to be at that show. So you want to, I think, be conscious of what you're doing and what it is. If you're going on a tour, you're probably going to have a preset thing that you're going to do every time. But to me, if they're one-off performances, you can always think about like, what are these people in this moment going to need? How can I contribute to their experience, make them love hip hop and make them love me and make them have a good time, right? That's what I think a performer's job is.
For real. Where and when are you opening for Classified?
May 17th in Saskatoon at Coors Event Center, and it's going to be great. I'm super stoked. I'm as excited to open as I am to like watch the show afterwards.
For
Yeah.
real. Yeah.
Hmm.
I agree with you. Classified as definitely like, OG legend status of the Canadian hip hop scene. He's been out doing a lot for a long time and continues to be
Hmm.
just like making dope music. So, yeah, that would
Yeah.
be a great show, I'm sure. We've
Hmm.
talked a lot about like kind of the skill side of things. Another element of artistry in 2024 is the promotional side. We're all expected to be managing to get our music out to people, not just make the music, but figure out how to get anybody to listen to it. Do you think much about promotional strategy ever?
I feel like what I have unlocked is that my promotional strategy is I am what I'm marketing, if that makes sense. Z, the free, and the personality of Zoe as a human are very similar. And so when I'm coming on the internet or making a post or sharing about something, I don't have to think about the persona that's putting that out there.
Right.
I share a lot of like my poetry and also my personal life and my music because I think that for me, I've tapped into humans agreeing with who I am and my values and that type of enthusiasm for life, and they're listening to the music as a result of that.
Yeah.
And so that's just what I continue to do.
Being just genuine and authentic, it goes a long ways to, yeah, like not
Yeah.
have to play a character when you turn on the camera or when you're on
Hmm.
stage or whatever else, right? Like if
And it's a lot of work. I think we all talk about that. And so for me, it can be very overwhelming. That's where my most self doubt can come from is like, I haven't posted in 4 days.
yeah,
And I just don't want to be trapped in that. And so if you can post things that are also about your life or other pieces, I think that it works. And I'm really curious about people's stories. I like knowing people as humans. That's
for
what
real.
makes me feel motivated to do things.
Yeah.
So I love that when you go, especially to most hip hop shows, you get to hear the stories about the song or who it was written or how this collab formed. I love that. To me,
Yeah.
that's like the richness of it.
I love that element too. That was, one of the main reasons I started doing these talks was just because I genuinely wanted to talk to a bunch of dope artists across the country. And, like I've had so much fun doing it and learned so much and just like built connections with people who, years ago I wouldn't have thought I would have gotten a chance to, So it's
Mm.
been a lot of fun being able to do that. And I think it's important to do that as well. A lot of artists kind of, seem to just kind of sleep on how much talent there is around them, and there's
Yeah.
there's gems all around if you look for them.
Yeah, and pretending that it doesn't exist, where I'm like, I think it's great to source and listen to things that are local to you or around you, or make sure that you have homies or rappers on your playlist every once in a while, like
Yeah,
have them looping in there because it goes a long way. And I think that there is an important thing to recognize that all art is worthy, all art is worthy. And from doing the ciphers, especially in YYC, and then also doing them here in YXE, that's something that I know the value of is why would I ever want to cut somebody down? It just doesn't matter that much. Whereas if you raise somebody up or encourage them to keep trying something, it can change their whole life.
yeah,
So I think that is where I want to be.
yeah, for
That's
real.
how I want to be interacting.
Can I ask you, what does success as an artist look like for you?
Mm.
And I'll add to it because Kendrick and Drake, and Kendrick said today to Drake something along the lines of like, "I'm not here for that lame shit. You're the only one who likes being famous," and I was like,
Right?
beautiful.
What a line.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
trying to be famous, or what's the kind of end goal of making music? I guess what pushes it?
Yeah. I think for me, success as an artist is where I have recently reached in my life is that I'm a full-time artist. And so I really love freedom. I love being able to move or travel or do things kind of when and how I want to do them. And art allows me to do that. And so it's a interesting realm when you get into being able to do it full time because it's very much piecework, right? It's like an artist mentorship thing here, it's a speaking thing here, it's a show here. And what's very real that I speak to a lot with the youth is that I'm not making the money that's paying my rent off my streams, but I'm making the money that's paying my rent off my music.
Right.
You know what I mean? And off of the performances in that space of being able to create art and bring others into art. And you have to work for it too. I think it involves grants. I think it involves getting into certain spaces where you can have your art be funded. And that's different energy. It's more of like a business mindset. You have to have very good writing skills and, you know, a good resume, all those things that we think of that are over here in this other realm, but they're very applicable to art. And if you develop those skills as well, then you can have an abundant life as an artist. I don't struggle as an artist. I have a great life as an artist. And I want more young people to tap into that and know they can do that. So I'm like, no, the struggling artist doesn't really exist. It's more just about what are you going to be consistent in doing and willing to also put the work in. And making music is one part of that, one part of this really large thing.
For real, putting in the work, that's a big part of that, you know, and it's tough. It's a lot of work for a lot of people who I think a lot of the time the artist brain isn't necessarily lined up that way to be good at filling out forms and, you know, being punctual and this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, that's all important. And consistency too, right? People, you know, have chaotic lives a lot of the time, and art gets a back burner when something goes wrong, and then that person's art career takes a bit of a hit as a result of it. But it's beautiful to hear that you've found a place where, you know, you feel like you're in a good spot with where the opportunities have led you. Something I ask a lot of people is there a specific opportunity or influence throughout your life that you would say you've been most grateful for that's kind of helped you get to this position?
Every human and every tree or moment in nature that made me feel like my light was valuable and worthy of shining, and that it needed to be there. So anytime that somebody walks up to you and is like, yo, those bars were dope, that's like this amazing fuel for your light, right? Or after a set, when someone's like, yo, this song really impacted me. Like I've had an experience like that as well. And I think that's why it's so important to me to also do that for other people. And nobody should gas anybody unnecessarily. There's no value to telling someone what they're doing is dope if it's not dope, but it is worth it to be like, yo, keep doing this. You obviously love this. That's awesome that you're doing something that you love. You should absolutely keep doing things that you love. It's good for your spirit. So it's those types of things. And very much, I always say my why is like little girls who come up and are like, I want to be a rapper, because we'll do, you know, workshops or school tours, or go to kind of different indigenous communities and connect. And it's like, sick if there was more women in hip hop as DJs and as studio engineers and as rappers. That would be a really great thing, right? We need all voices in all spaces. I always say that. So every time like a little girl is stoked or like tries a call and response or that type of moment, it's a really cool feeling. Because I didn't actually know when I was a kid that women could rap. I actually thought like, oh, only guys rap, because that's all that I was seeing till I found the Salt and Pepper CD and it changed my life. So yeah.
Yeah, for real. That's kind of interesting. What do you think it is that keeps women out of hip hop? Because I've always thought to myself, like, okay, I've seen statistics that like women on average have bigger vocabularies. Women on average talk more during a day, like according to the stats I've seen anyways. Like, so it doesn't make sense to me that there aren't all sorts of, you know, prolific and gifted female MCs out there. Do you think it's just a stigma kind of that it's not seen in the mainstream?
I think it is in the mainstream. There's some absolutely, I would wager some of the best rappers, Lil Sims, Rhapsody, like their lyricism is incredible. And I think that it's the patriarchy. I think that it's what I call small dick energy, which is men freaking out whenever there's a woman who's going to take up space and use her voice and say something that then they have to listen to. And so I think it's shifting, and it's a part of a lot of the systems that are flawed in our world, right? It's heteronormative patriarchy, colonialism, and capitalism, and all those things fuel women's voices and women of color and people of color having their voices lessened in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
And we just have to keep doing it. It's just so important, right? Every time there's a woman rapping on the Juno stage or repping it in certain realms that wasn't there before, that's really dope. And there's always been women in hip hop. They've always been there.
Yeah.
I think it's just that very hyper masculine place that a lot of rap culture was kind of grown from
Mainstream,
probably wasn't,
right?
yeah, exactly, wasn't the kind of space for it. And so I've met so many dope men who've been very supportive and very encouraging, like from YYC to Vancouver, yeah, everywhere, into Saskatoon and Regina. Lots of dope men who are like, just say you're a great rapper instead of like you're a great female rapper.
Yeah. Yeah. You shouldn't have to add the disclaimer to it or whatever.
Yeah. But it also works, and I'll play to that, right? I'm like, you know what, if you put me on this bill because of that, and then I just feel like more fire to prove myself, and it's just fun.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it for sure. That's a positive outlook. Do you ever think about like who your target audience is? Are you rapping specifically for the little girls ever, or like when you sit down to write, do you think about it?
I have a lot of different target audiences, I think. And again, that's why I think I'm very conscious when I'm performing what I'm performing. I have lots of stuff that can be great for youth. I think I rap to women, but I think I just rap to humans that feel deeply. I think I feel deeply. And so those are kind of like the stories that I tend to tell or the things that I tend to talk about. And I really love helping people have fun. And so when I'm performing live, I think that's something that really comes through. And that's why I get consistently booked, even if I'm not putting out music all the time, because when I perform, it's like, come into this electrifying experience and like, let's have fun in this space. And I think that's like the gift that we get to like have a reciprocal experience in when we're performing. And hip hop is so about like exchange, you know, it's one of the most amazing genres for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of give and take in hip hop for sure. So there's a segment that I kind of rapid fire, like how important is this or that, and you can be as long-winded or as brief as you want to be with your answers. But how important is a rapper's vocabulary?
Very.
Yep. How important is an artist's physical location?
Not important.
Okay. How important is an MC's fashion or image?
Very important. I'm a Leo. I got a ring on every finger. For me, I think it's important because I love that about hip hop, that a big part of the culture is like, you're not going to show up to like a battle, right? With your crew of B-boys or B-girls with like dirty shoes. You're just not going to do it. Yeah. And I love that part.
Yeah, for real. I mean, this one's kind of already been spoken about, but I'm going to ask it just because I like hearing artists tell me it. How important is getting grants?
I think that it is important. For me, it's changed my life in that realm. And I think it can really make a person feel like they are getting somewhere with their art. And it's important to keep trying for them. If you don't get grants, just keep applying, because that's what everything in life is about. Just continuing to do the thing. There's that quote where it's like, the person who makes it just didn't give up, you know, and they're not always necessarily even have the most unique idea. A grant doesn't have to be the most brilliant thing. It just has to be well thought out. You have to prove you can orchestrate it well, and then you have to follow through.
Yeah, definitely. Good advice, I would say. How important is it to open for big name rappers when they come through town? Shouts to Classified.
It's really fun. And I don't think anything is essential. I think it's about what you want to do. I love opportunities and I'll always give them my most, but there is something really magic about doing a house show. There's something really magic about performing to a crowd of 15 people who are completely with you.
Yeah.
So I think I've experienced like both, thousands of festival crowds cheering and then 20 people in kind of like a more intimate space.
The sweaty basement at the house party.
Yeah, they both can be so live and so meaningful. Yeah.
How important is a local reputation?
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about, oh, music videos? That's a good one. Are music videos
Mm.
important anymore?
I think that they are. I love visuals. So I think I have a lot of fun with them. And I know that like a lot of kids, YouTube is how they access everything. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So that's how they're accessing their music. And then if you have things on there like a music video, it can tap into that.
Yeah. Okay. How about pressing physical merch? Well, making physical merch and specifically pressing vinyl. How important is that?
Pressing vinyl, no, it's way too expensive. I've done lots of research on it. We did a cassette tape for Moonbeams release, which was hella dope.
Yeah.
Having merch is vital, absolutely vital. I make so much money on merch. I always make way more money on merch than from any show. And having your merch priced reasonably. You shouldn't price your hoodies at $100. Do you know what I mean? So find a good source and make it in a way where you can have it accessible for people. I always do like a deal. Like if you get a t-shirt and a crew neck, I knock $5 each off, right?
Yeah.
Those kind of things are really key. People want to support you. And so if you have something that they can support you by buying in that moment, they'll buy it and hang out at your merch table, make sure you have the right change, keep track of it, and then reinvest that money to get more merch, right? Like take a little bit as what you need, but make sure you keep getting more merch.
How important is paid advertising?
I don't use it very often, but I have homies who swear by it. And I think if you know how to use it, then it's great. We did use it when we started the ciphers in YXE. We kind of did like these targeted Facebook ads.
Just to get the word out a little bit.
Yeah, and we saw that it was totally worth it. And I think people think you have to put in like $50 or whatever. It can be like $10 a day. You know what I mean? And if you do that even just for 1 week before a show or something, it can really pay off.
For real. How important is listening to legends of hip hop?
I think it's vital. I think it's life-giving. And I think, especially if you would want to be a rapper and be a part of hip hop, it's important to know those roots. And it's important to also know the roots of the culture itself and recognize if you're a guest, I'm a guest to hip hop as a white woman, and you should always respect that house that you are a guest in, as we would when we're humans, right? So be respectful of the house you're in. Yeah. Oh, I don't even know that is a book. Who wrote it?
That is a book by Mickey Hess. Mickey Hess.
Yeah, everybody should read that book and understand what that means.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
This is kind of a curveball, but how important is an MC's political leaning? Some MCs look at me like I'm crazy when I ask them this, but
No, for me, it's very important. I think that I am a political person, so it's part of that authenticity of my image. I'm often political in my live shows. I'll speak to things that are happening in the moment. I'll say things that I resonate with, whether it's land back, free Palestine, if it's what's happening in that moment and it appeals to me. There was a bill that was passed in US that took away a lot of women's rights for their bodies, and I had a live show for it shortly before that, and I spoke to it. I always speak about consent and how sexy consent is at every show. So for me, it's part of my identity. And so it definitely comes into my music.
For real. I applaud you for, speaking out about those things, especially back and forth between Alberta and Saskatchewan, where
it's interesting.
It's time to speak out. It's time for somebody to be talking about what's going on a little bit more often. So yeah, applause for that. Can I ask you a tip for, let's say, tip for improving someone's stage show?
Be prepared. The more practiced you are, the more freedom you have to play. Because if you're worrying about what's coming next or your lyrics, you have no space to really be present. And so be prepared, practice with a mic, practice movement, right? I think a lot of performers will show that they haven't performed a lot when they're performing live and they run out of breath. It's like, oh, you obviously haven't been moving when you've been performing before. You've probably been practicing sitting in your car, driving your whip. You've probably been practicing in your living room. And the other thing, please, for the love of God, if there's backing vocals in your whole track, I leave. I'm going outside to take some air.
Yeah.
And it's a pandemic in its own way right now.
For real.
And I'm not sure why, but I feel like it does a disservice to hip hop. It does a disservice to all the rappers who came before us, who really had to know their shit. And you have to be able to spit your whole verse through with no backing track for me to fully respect you as an artist in hip hop.
I agree completely. As MCs, we're supposed to be on stage with a microphone. That's our instrument. If you can't even like do your song with your one instrument that you're using, what are you up there doing?
No. And maybe like if you have some backing on a hook or something,
oh sure, back the gang vocals
that's enhancing and that you've consciously thought of, but it's absolutely vital. And for me, it's like, look at who your audience is in that moment and make sure that you give them something that is unique to them in that space, right? I think it's also important to know the land that you're on whenever you're performing, like know which treaty territory you're performing in. That's important, right? If you're touring or showing up somewhere, and just think about those things.
Yeah, I agree completely. So just kind of in closing, I ask everybody a series of a couple questions. Can you describe the local scene, whichever local scene I guess you want to talk about?
Okay. Yeah, I think I know very intimately both YYC and YXE. And I think that the YYC that I know is from Cypher Club YXE, the Tribe Artist Society, doing amazing cypher things. And it's very loving. It's like very family. It's very people holding each other up. And that's just like what I subscribe to. And I move in other spaces as well. I performed on lots of different zones in that realm and competition stuff, but I just show up with love. And I'm like, I just know there's enough room for all of us. If I blow out your candle, my candle doesn't get any bigger. So I think that that's the culture. But Calgary has a reputation of being very cutthroat and very like people at each other. I think I'm just lucky to kind of glide through that. And I just really don't care. If somebody like hates what I'm doing, I'm like, okay, like moving on.
They say you're supposed to get haters as you become more, successful.
Right? It's like, it's a very big part of doing anything in the public eye, especially with the internet being the way that it is.
You're going to piss somebody off. Yeah.
You're going to, absolutely. So, and in YXC, it's much smaller. And I found that there is a lot more high level musicianship that I've connected with. So a lot of like just real musicians and really amazing touring musicians, people that are making their living off of music. And this is a thing. There's these very famous writers from Ireland because it rained all the time. It's much colder in Saskatoon. And I'm like, maybe people are inside making art more. But the scene is very welcoming. And I think that people pay more for shows in Saskatoon, which is interesting, than Calgary. And there are also a lot less pay to play bullshit things going on in Saskatoon that I've interacted with. Whereas in Calgary, I felt like
people are more willing to pay a ticket in Saskatoon because there's just fewer shows to go to. So they're like, oh, okay.
Well, there's tons of shows. There's actually more artists and more accessible venues I found in Saskatoon. Like it's very easy to book a dope venue and it comes with an awesome sound person and they're running it. So I don't know. I was surprised by it actually when I came. Maybe it's just that, people invest in that money more. I'm not sure. It's curious.
Interesting. Yeah. Can you name some other artists from your scene who people should be up on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So YYC, I love Zinzer. There's so many artists. Kay the Chosen, I love as a human and amazing rapper too. I'm always going to shout out Tiny Wings because she's another woman out here doing it.
Oh, yeah.
From out this way, not hip hop, but Katie Tupper is brilliant. I just love everything she sings. And Theo Noble is cool. We're doing that H2 Flow show with Theo Noble. Equal, phenomenal Indigenous rapper who kills it. Listen to Big Tones, obviously. And like yeah, take time to put some people from where you're from on your playlist, and only stuff you like. You don't have to fake it, but there is amazing art in all things. I remember the day I heard a country song I didn't deeply dislike, and it made me realize, oh shit, there's good in everything, and I can't be too prideful to be above anything.
For real, yeah.
Because I just
Well, you
haven't
don't
met
want to
the
just
thing that I like yet.
you don't want to write any one entire genre off. I mean, in
Yeah.
general, yeah, I'm not a country fan, but I agree.
Yeah.
There's a song here or there that I've heard or I've been like, okay, I can respect this, and especially live. I find that no matter what type of music I'm seeing live, I can respect. You know, like at North Country Fair, I've seen, you know, the 6-piece band, and there's two guys with banjos wailing away, and it's just like, okay, these guys are good musicians. I can't front like they're not like dope musicians, you know.
Totally.
But
That's why live music and festivals are so great. I'm like, every rapper should go to folk festivals. You know what I mean? Because you're going to see artistry and musicianship and think of things. Once I got to freestyle over a banjo, it was a highlight of my life. So, yeah.
So any plans to do shows or tours coming up that we can plug and tell people to go to?
Yeah, well, May is crazy. I'm very excited to open for Classified. Moonbeams is opening for Shad, who I also really love as a legend. So those will be kind of the focus. And then, yeah, festivals kind of through the prairies. And I would love to have a Vancouver show like in August. I would love to align something there. So we'll put it out. And I'm always doing things so people can watch for me. And it's the funnest to come out and rap with us. So you can either hit up Cypher Club YYC, or we do stuff in the YXC community too. And yeah, I'm always happy to see human beings and
just
get
out
to
of
share in hip-hop.
curiosity, how far east have you went in your musical travels? Have you been out to Winnipeg, or you know further
I've never
east
been
than
to
that
Winnipeg.
even?
I would like to. Yeah, I've been to Toronto, and we've rapped on PEI and Halifax.
Oh, nice.
But it would also be really cool, yeah, to get to do another show. I would like to go to the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg. So, but I feel like the summer is packed, so maybe in the fall.
Yeah, don't overburden your summer. Take some time. Yeah.
I want to soak it in when I get to go.
For real. What's the best way for people to support you or other artists that they like in 2024?
Well, you can find me, Z the Free, ZHE the Free, and buying merch is a great thing to do. Sending a message that's a positive thing is a great thing to do. Following and sharing on your stories, those things matter. And putting the links so people can directly access. If like there's an artist you love, you know, they have a show upcoming, put like the ticket link in your story so people can easily access, because people on social media are flying by stuff. So make things easy for people to connect to the artists that you love.
Yes, hell yes. I apologize for wearing my jersey today. I thought that the game started at 8, and my Twitch chat's like, the game's tomorrow, bud. So I'm sitting here in a jersey like an idiot.
It's
whatever.
the jersey fashion.
It is what it is. So I appreciate you taking your time to do this. And yeah, I'll be listening for more music as you drop it. Do you think we'll ever hear anything like on the platforms from H2 Flow, or is just kind of the nature of it that it won't be recorded like that? Like,
it will. We want to do a couple more live shows and see what really hits. And then we're going to let that inform what we do. Kind of, we'll be like, okay, this seems to really hit, so let's play something with this. Yeah. But I also want to say this is one of the funnest interviews I've ever done. You're really great at this. And you obviously also know a lot of the roots and the genuine places of it. And I really respect you, and I really appreciate this conversation. It was great.
Thank you a lot. I do put in a lot of time thinking about hip hop. So, you know, hip hop super nerd, self-described over on this end, and it's been an eye-opening experience, kind of getting more into the Canadian scene and learning about different artists. So, you know, I'm eternally humbled and grateful for all the artists that come through to talk. So, thank you again for doing this. And
who's someone you're bumping from, like anybody you're listening to right now that you're listening to in this moment?
I mean, I listen to so much music. Like I really go through like 8 or 9 hours worth of new music every week.
Wow.
And then like choose my favorites, send them to DJ Dice. He puts After the Smoke is Clear together. So,
Cool.
you know, like I'm really looking forward to Kaz Mega's new album finally like hitting the airwaves, or however
I'm
he
so
puts it out.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Edmonton
a lot
is
of really
lucky.
talented artists. Tariq just dropped a really dope album up out of Edmonton. High Rises, Low Falls, that was called.
Yeah.
People should check that out.
Edmonton has an amazing hip hop scene, like really.
Yeah, it really does.
Really rich.
Tons of talent coming out of Edmonton, but also, you know, I've found more and more talent out of Calgary. So, you know, the rivalry is maybe there. Do you have any comparison between the two? Do you think it's a rivalry? This was something I talked to a different artist about recently.
I think anything can either be a rivalry or fun competition. It's like the energy you want to show up in it. To me, I'm like, if there's a dope rap scene in every city, guess what that's great for? Rappers going on tour. You know what I mean? So I'm like, big it up. Like, have it everywhere.
I personally know that there are a lot of Edmonton artists who love a lot of Calgary artists and vice versa as well. So there's all sorts of love between the two scenes too. But yeah, it's easy to look at them as a rivalry. But yeah, I guess we'll pull the plug on this thing. Thanks for doing this. And I'm looking forward to hearing more music from you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Bye.
Yeah, peace.
Much love.
All right, everybody. That was Z the Free. You should check out her music. If you want to catch more interviews like this, I do one every Tuesday with a different artist from across the country. Next week, I'm talking to Shark the SOB on May 7th. He's Toronto-based. He's the head of a group called the Sons and Daughters of Boom Bap, to which I've recently been inducted, and will be dropping some music with in the future. So I'm looking forward to talking to him and actually getting to meet him, because he started that whole movement, and you know, now I get to rap with other dope artists because of it. So that's fun. May 14th, I'm talking to Kits Willman. May 21st, I'm talking to Jay Roberts. May 28th, I talked to Roshan. And then I'm thinking through June, I'll probably book some more interviews. So stay tuned for that. It might be once a week. It might be twice a week. And then I might take July, August off. I'm not entirely decided yet, but you know, this sometimes is a lot to keep up with. So you know, I appreciate people for coming by and making some of the work feel worthwhile, popping in chat and everything. And yeah, appreciate y'all. Catch you on the next one. Peace.